Donald Trump appears to be panicking as California Governor Gavin Newsom arrives in Washington, D.C., fueling speculation about the political future ahead of the next election cycle. While Trump is seen leaving the Capitol, Governor Newsom is arriving at the Capitol building, meeting with Democratic leaders and presenting himself in a highly presidential manner. In these moments, Newsom is seen meeting with the Democratic Hispanic Caucus, as well as with other senior Democratic figures in Washington. And I was among the first news outlets to speak directly with Governor Newsom after his arrival in D.C. Here's what he told reporter Pablo Manriquez. Let's watch the clip.
Governor, quick question for Midas Touch.
Yeah.
What do you make of this $1.776 billion fund that
It's
Trump's
a criminal
proposing
enterprise. It's not just corruption. It's not just graft. It's a full-on criminal enterprise, and it needs to be shut down. It needs to be stopped. It's a disgrace. And I count on my congressmen to do it. Sorry.
Then Governor Newsom delivered a major speech in Washington, D.C., where he openly condemned the corruption and criminal conduct within the Trump administration. Here's what he said. Let's play the clip.
This is a corruption story. Plain and simple. Trump administration's a corruption story. It's the great grift. And it's taking shape on a daily basis in every way, shape, form. You didn't even mention the $230 million at the DOJ that he's also trying to extract, not just that $10 billion, now $1.8 billion settlement. We've talked a lot about the $400 million plan, which is not $400 million. It was over $900 million in the Pentagon budget to retrofit the plan. We talk about the 8 large-scale projects he has in the Gulf and around the rest of the globe. The fact that he quite literally used the tariff regime in order to get those deals done, particularly the one in Vietnam. We're talking about the kind of corruption at scale we've never seen in our lifetime, including what Witkoff family's doing, what the Kushner family's doing, the Board of Peace, which is really about getting a piece of the Middle East. All of this happened in plain open sight. You saw last week, and the fact that finally he's delivering on the cell phones. Another part of the grift. The good old days when it was just about watches, $100,000, sneakers, $60, and cell phones. This is happening at a scale we've never experienced in our lifetime, and he's just winding up. And where's Congress? Where's Johnson? Where is Thune? Supine. Completely complicit in all of this graft and all this corruption. Where are institutions? Also rolling over. Also selling out with respect, as you know, and I know I've offended people. I've got a Patriot site, which in and of itself should be reasonably offensive because it mirrors and mocks a little bit of what Trump's doing, but we sell knee pads. And by the way, the last ones sold out. New ones just got in, but they sold out because our universities, remember that, were selling out. Our law firms were selling out. Media's selling out. All those settlements. You got, and the corruption is, what Brendan Carr is doing. What he's doing with the Tenga deal. Nexstar, $6.2 billion. Going to get 80% penetration in our household markets. The cap was 39%. Brendan Carr saying he didn't like the war coverage and is considering now investigating certain media outlets. This is all happening on our watch. Society becomes how we behave. We have agency. We have a responsibility.
And while Governor Newsom was delivering that speech exposing the corruption and criminality, Todd Blanche, Trump's acting attorney general, was giving an interview at the very same time. Here's what Blanche had to say. Let's play this clip.
You're the nation's top law enforcement official right now. Would you be okay with people who were convicted of hurting police getting taxpayer money?
Just to be clear, people that hurt police get money all the time. Okay. There's a process where if you believe you have your rights violated, you can apply for funds, you can sue, you can file a claim, you can go to court. In some of those cases, the state, the government, the federal government settles those cases. It's abhorrent to ever touch a law enforcement officer, which is why anytime anybody does that, and it's a federal officer, we'll prosecute them. But that's a completely different question with whether an individual is allowed to apply for a claim. Whether they'll get a claim, depends. I can't, it would not be appropriate for me to talk about absolutes, like absolutely not, under no circumstances. I mean, we can talk about hypotheticals till we're blue in the face, but that really wouldn't be fruitful.
Right. So it's almost as if Newsom's ears were ringing. Because at that exact moment, California Governor Gavin Newsom was in the middle of his speech talking about why the country needs a properly functioning DOJ, IRS, and FBI. Let's play this clip.
Demand that our institutions need to function again. We need a functioning Department of Justice, a functioning IRS, a functioning FBI, not allow them to become power ministries for the dear leader, which they've become. We need to call all of this out. We need to hold ourselves to a higher level of accountability and expectation as well. And so, all of these things, will be at play as we move forward. And so it's about action. It's also about passion. I think it was Oliver Wendell Holmes said, as life is action and passion, it's required all of us to share the action and passion of our time at peril of being judged not to have lived. I think the fight matters. A year ago, my sense was in this country that our path back as Democrats, weak and ineffective, the two bubble words, was through the center. I think there may be some truth to that. But I think increasingly I'd argue it's through the fight. And people want fighters. People want people with conviction and clarity, not ideologues, open argument, interested in evidence. I don't think we are well served by tearing other people down, but calling out the villains on a tax code, calling out the villains as it relates to monopolization of capital. And I'm sorry, that's a real issue. I think we would do very well. Talking as FDR talked in 1944 about a new social compact, talking about a floor where no one falls below, talking to that blue collar and white collar worker that are both asking the same question, what happens when I do fall? Will you be there to hold me up? I think those fundamental truths and values will be part of the comeback for the Democratic Party. But that comeback starts with Speaker Jeffries this November.
Here's more from California Governor Gavin Newsom. As he talks about the need to save democracy once again, he's taking that message directly to Washington, D.C., and bringing the fight straight to the nation's capital.
30-year-old is not doing better than her father for the first time in history. That is a 5-alarm fire. Doesn't work anymore. We can't tinker anymore. You can't play in the margins anymore. There's a reason Donald Trump's in office, a reason Bernie fills stadiums. They're both right on the diagnosis. And we can't, with respect, fail more efficiently by managing more effectively the decline. Doesn't work anymore. System has to be reimagined. It does. Can't play in the margins. Tax code is broken. I'm sorry. I know it offends many of you. It is. Inheritance codes doesn't work anymore. It's why we're having billionaire tax, wealth tax debates in my own state and all across the United States. The pitchforks, yeah, they're here. They're not just coming. And we saw it with all the populism and authoritarianism that came from that because of our lousy trade deals, and that when looking back, we're all geniuses, but the last 30 years and the rise of these authoritarian tendencies in terms of governance, we ain't seen nothing yet, because now it's the blue collar worker that sounds a lot like 25-year-old white collar workers that I see in San Francisco that are wondering why they're not getting a call back on a job interview. They're sounding the same. That's a different kind of coalition, the white collar and blue collar coalition. A lot of people are a little frustrated on the stepped up basis where you can just borrow, die, no tax. This is, enough. This is not working. That's why I raised the minimum wage to $25 for healthcare workers, 20 for fast food workers. You still have 20 states. It's $7.25 an hour, and you're subsidizing that. That's madness. And now with these trend lines, we've seen AI is going to detonate all of this. And it's happening in real time, and we're not talking about that. I know we're talking about hyperscale data centers and the utility. That's interesting. But we're missing, a memo from the West Coast, the world I'm living in, absorbed by, consumed by. Something big is happening in the plumbing of the world. And we still have systems that were designed in 1935 that are no longer viable in 25. Unemployment insurance, you think that's going to work and hold up? That doesn't work for clerical workers anymore. You need employment insurance. Universal basic income, you don't need charity. We need ownership. It's universal basic capital. By the way, those are the creators telling you that, not just me. That's what Sam Altman, Dario, and others are saying. They're the ones making that point, and the voters are demanding it. Got to have an ownership stake. You cannot save democracy unless we democratize the economy.
And here's more from Governor Gavin Newsom, as he calls out what he describes as state regime media, specifically targeting Fox News. Listen to what Newsom had to say here.
Disabuse everyone of this California derangement syndrome. The top performing economy of all the 49 others, the top performing economy of all developed nations since 2019. 40% GDP growth. We have no peers. We dominate in every category. Dominate. You talk about manufacturing, you're talking about my home state. You talk to me about forestry jobs and hunting jobs, you're talking about my home state. You talk about venture capital, come on. $106 billion record-breaking venture capital. You talk about every category. There's not a single category, large-scale economic category where California isn't the dominant state. We have more engineers, more researchers, more Nobel laureates than any other state in the nation. And we are the center of the universe. We're writing the rules of the future. And this is why the right hates us. It's insecurity. It's not our trajectory. You talk about fusion. You talk about quantum. Talk about AI. You're talking about California. 32 of the 50 top market cap AI companies in our backyard, the state of California. So all of these areas, promise, peril, all of that is represented in all of what I just said, that mosaic that is California, the future happening in California often first, America's coming attraction, including the challenges of affordability, housing crisis that appeared in our state decades before it's now become not just a trend line, but a headline across the United States. The issues of homelessness, poverty, relationship to the cost of housing, the original sin in my state. So much of that now dominant in the consciousness and focus as we relate to the American system today.
Now, this comes at a time when Donald Trump has record low approval, the highest disapproval ever. The latest Fox poll shows that Donald Trump's overall approval is only 39%. When it comes to inflation, Donald Trump's approval is net negative 52%. And of course,
and when you add it all up, the corruption, the fact that nothing feels affordable anymore, the lies, the fraud, the lavish ballrooms, the giant arches, the reflecting pools, the endless wars, everything this guy is doing comes across as deeply corrupt and disastrous. The American people absolutely despise him. They want him out. They want him removed from office. Meanwhile, one of Donald Trump's closest allies, Mike Lindell, says he plans to ask for roughly $400 million in taxpayer money from Donald Trump's reported $1.776 billion fund. Money critics argue was effectively taken from taxpayers. So apparently, according to this claim, Trump may end up handing Lindell hundreds of millions of dollars. Seriously, this is where people believe taxpayer money is going.
We actually put into the government a couple months ago through following a process that they told us about then. Now, this is new, and we are actually going to get it out there. I don't care which comes first to help my employees that lost millions upon millions of dollars. We had 3 third parties look and do an evaluation of MyPillow, what it was prior to all these attacks and what it is now. And all of them averaged $400 million that it cost the brand and cost MyPillow. And it's just horrific that our own government could do this to the American dream, this company that was built on the American dream and made in the USA. And to have this happen, this will be it will be a blessing to actually get made some of these my employees made whole that were stockholders because in MyPillow, and even a lot of them that have lost their jobs, that were affected then, and all this